I don't want to watch your stupid video. Just tell me what are the best tier 4 upgrades for the A.I.M team. Okay. Number 1, Assaulter passive. Number 2, Researcher passive. Number 3, Infector special. And number 4, Monstrosity special. Not only is that it, you don't even have to use all those characters. This video is sponsored by ClanHQ. So ClanHQ is a fully featured messaging app with all your favorite features, plus features specific to MSF, including recruiting tools and alliance management tools. And this is because ClanHQ is designed specifically to meet the needs of mobile gamers. When you set up an alliance with ClanHQ, you can assign leaders and officers. It'll automatically create leadership channels for you. You'll always see the same name that members use in the game. You can even remove a member and they'll automatically be removed from all your team chats. Now, when it comes to recruiting, you can view looking for group ads and post your own looking for members ad. You can even auto-filter ads to either your game profile or your alliance profile to immediately browse all the best candidates. So I've put a link to ClanHQ in the video description below, so you can be one of the first to check them out. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Orange Essentials. Today we're going to be breaking down the best tier 4 upgrades for the new and improved A.I.M team. So right off the bat, I'm sure there's a few questions. The big one, what is the best A.I.M team? And the fact of the matter is, what I like about this team is you want to use different combinations of characters for different things. So, for example, when I fight the Brotherhood, I prefer to have Assaulter, Monstrosity, and Security as the 3 minions. But when I fight a lot of other teams, I prefer to have Monstrosity, Security, and Researcher. The only one that just doesn't really seem to be worth using very much in just about any situation is Infector. But pretty much everyone else I rotate in for one purpose or another. The other main question is, how good are these guys? How much do they punch up? Where do you want to use them? So the short version is this team really excels against teams that apply a lot of debuffs. That's their niche. They do pretty well against non-synergy teams because they have synergy, but really where they shine is against teams that are going to hit them with a lot of debuffs. So they mainly hard counter the Brotherhood, Mystic teams, and the Spider-Verse teams. Just teams that apply a lot of debuffs, they punish you very heavily for doing that to them. So that's pretty much what this team is for. So as for which specific layout I use and who I have in what spot, you can tune into the Twitch streams and check that out, or maybe I'll make a separate video. But for now, I just want to get right into breaking down the best tier 4 upgrades for the A.I.M team. So let's get into it. All right, starting us off, we're going to take a look at Graviton. Starting with Graviton's basic. Upgrading that ability with tier 4s adds 50% more damage to the primary attack and 25% more damage per bonus attack per negative effect on the target. Now this has nothing to do with the tier 4 upgrade, but a side note on this ability, it actually does an extra bonus attack for each negative effect on the target. So this basic attack can be used even against someone who has 5 stacks of death proof. If they have 6 debuffs, all those bonus attacks are going to cut through it and still kill the target. So just a fun fact about that. But as for how good this upgrade is, 50% damage is slightly above average, and the extra 25% damage on each bonus attack is nice, but because each bonus attack is its own attack, it keeps getting reduced by armor each time. So it can be a strong upgrade, especially if you have a heavily debuffed enemy, but Graviton doesn't have the highest base damage, and he normally doesn't even use his basic attack until at least turn 3, and this team really isn't that much about doing overwhelming damage. They've got a lot of other tools, so I like this upgrade, but I don't think it's essential, so for me, it's a 3-star. Now we're going to take a look at Graviton's special. So adding tier 4s to this ability adds 60% damage to the primary target and 60% damage to the adjacent targets. So if you just hit the standard 3 people with this, you're actually getting 180% more damage, but it is spread out across 3 targets. So again, like the basic, that's a moderate upgrade, especially for a splash damage attack, so I like it, it's pretty strong, but I don't think that they ever really rely on it. I haven't found a matchup yet where I've needed that, and that's been the reason I've lost. And again, he doesn't have the highest base damage, although if you put him near Monstrosity, he's usually going to have offense up, which is nice. So again, this is a very good upgrade. It's just not quite essential. So for me, this is a 3-star. All right, now we're going to take a look at Graviton's ultimate. So Graviton's ult, when you put tier 4s in it, it adds 50% damage to the primary target original attack. And that's it. So that is just barely average. So for me, this is just a 2-star. All right, now we're gonna take a look at Graviton's passive. So when you put tier 4s in his passive, it adds 10% damage to all AIM allies. So that's pretty good. Again, this is one of the stronger upgrades. Graviton suffers from having a lot of really good upgrades, but nothing that you have to have that's just a revolutionary improvement to the team. So definitely nothing wrong with upping everyone's damage. It's a very strong upgrade, but in my experiences, the matches that they win, they still win. The matches that they struggle with, they'd still struggle with, and I don't think just an extra little bit of damage would make the difference. So for me, this is a 3-star. Now we're gonna take a look at Scientist Supreme. So Scientist Supreme's basic, it adds 40% more damage to the basic attack, and that's it. I was on the fence about whether this is a 1-star or a 2-star, because Scientist Supreme has really low base damage, and 30-40% increased damage on a basic is pretty standard, so this is a weak 2-star for me. Now we're going to take a look at Scientist Supreme's special. So putting tier 4s on the special improves from flipping 3 negative effects into positive effects to flipping 4 negative effects into positive effects. And the reason that I really don't like this upgrade is if you have security on the team, which you should, they don't really keep any debuffs on the team. It's very rare that you have more than 3 debuffs on any character on the AIM team because they're really good about removing them or flipping them or transferring them. So this almost never comes up. For me, this is a 1-star. All right, now we're gonna take a look at Scientist Supreme's ultimate. So this one's actually an interesting one. It changes a couple things. It increases the heal from 2,000 flat health to 3,500 flat health, which is very negligible. 1,500 health is not a lot in the scheme of things. And it changes from giving 25% extra focus for each AIM ally to 50%. Now, Scientist Supreme has really high focus, so that tends to not be necessary. Scientist Supreme's focus is going to be good enough to already apply the debuffs to pretty much any enemy except for characters with abnormally high resistance, you know, like a Thanos with taunt or Colossus with defense up, something like that. And the extra focus that Scientist Supreme would gain from this upgrade is not going to be anywhere near enough to apply debuffs to the targets that would have resisted it anyway. So for that reason, I give this just a 2-star. It's really not impactful at all. It's a very small heal difference, and Scientist Supreme should already have no trouble applying the debuffs. However, the reason I said this is an interesting one is because if you have a kind of weak AIM team and you need them to really punch above their weight, this is more impactful because that extra focus will allow Scientist Supreme to still land the debuffs against much stronger characters. So, just your standard punch up of like 100k towards late game, I don't think you need this ability. But if you've got, you know, maybe like 150k AIM team and you're trying to take on 300k teams, that extra focus will make the difference in that instance. So you might want to prioritize it higher for that reason, but all things being equal, for me, this is just a 2-star. All right, now we're gonna take a look at the Scientist Supreme passive. So this changes a couple things. The first thing, very small, AIM allies, instead of reviving with 25% health, they revive with 30% max health. That's very negligible. It's almost never gonna be the difference in anything. The other change is on turn, grant 1 to 2 ability energy to all AIM allies with a negative effect. And on the one hand, all that extra energy sounds really good. However, the AIM team is really good about not having negative effects. They get rid of them a lot, whether it's being transferred or whether security's clearing them, or whether it's being flipped by a researcher. They just don't hang on to debuffs. That's kind of what makes this team so good against debuff teams, is they get benefits for receiving them, but they never actually really hang on to them. So based in my experience using this team, that hardly ever comes up. And then for it to only half the time give an extra ability energy when it does come up, and they all have really short cooldowns, so oftentimes they only need 1 more energy anyway. It really isn't very impactful very often, so for me, this is just a 2-star. Now we're gonna take a look at AIM security. AIM security, if you put tier 4s in the basic, adds 40% more damage, and that's it. AIM security, not known for high base damage at all, 40% very standard upgrade, no other change. It does add 40% more to the separate attack that she'll do instead of the basic if she's ability blocked, but again, it's just 40% more damage, so really, really irrelevant. That's just a 2-star. Now we're going to look at Security Special. So Security Special, when you put tier 4s in it, it increases the heal that Security gives herself and adjacent AIM allies by 3,000 health. I was on the fence about this one as well, whether it's a 1-star or a 2-star, but all you need to know is that it's not very good. 3,000 base health is not a lot in the scheme of things. Late game, it's very common for even average characters to have between 150 and 200,000 health. And again, that's like mid-range, so 3,000 health, not making a big difference here. The reason I think I lean towards a 2-star is because it does heal adjacents as well, so the extra health to the adjacents can occasionally make a difference, but again, it's a weak 2-star. Finally, we're looking at Security's passive. Putting tier 4s in Security's passive adds 5% more resistance, and resistance is a good thing to have on a tank, but 5%, not a big deal. And again, they get bonuses and all sorts of things for even being hit by debuffs, so I'm not even sure if I want the resistance on this character. 5% resistance is a very standard upgrade, so again, this squeaks by as maybe a 2-star. Now we're going to take a look at AIM Assaulter. First up, AIM Assaulter's basic. So when you put tier 4s in this ability, it adds 20% more base damage. However, what you don't see is that upgrading an ability that applies a bleed also improves the damage of that bleed from 135% of base damage to 150% of base damage, going from level 6 to level 7. So it's a small upgrade, especially because the bleed lasts for 2 turns, and Assaulter does have really good base damage. So that said though, it's just 20% there, and then 15% and 15%. It's a very moderate amount. It's like a 50% total damage, and that's over 2 turns. So for me, this is just a 2-star. All right, now taking a look at AIM Security Special. So when you put tier 4s on this ability, it adds 50% damage to the primary attack, and then it adds an extra 25% damage per negative effect on the target if Assaulter themselves has a debuff on them. So this is kind of uncommon, but it's not the most unheard of, and when Assaulter does have a debuff on them, this ability can do a lot of damage because the enemies are almost always going to have a lot of debuffs on them. So you end up immediately getting an extra 75%, 100% more damage just from that portion of the upgrade. It actually happened on stream earlier today, and everyone on stream was really confused when my Assaulter almost one-shot an enemy Sabertooth. So it doesn't happen that often, but Assaulter is very fast, so you get plenty of opportunities to use it. And because it only has to work once to do a ton of damage, it can make a big difference in the fight. So for me, this is a 3-star. All right, now we're gonna look at Assaulter's passive. So I really like Assaulter's passive. For starters, on turn, change speed bar instead of by 10%, by 20% for self and adjacent AIM allies. That's really good. Now, Assaulter is typically very fast and has speed up anyway, so Assaulter is going to take a lot of turns, and it kind of rewards itself. The more turns Assaulter takes, the more extra turn meter that everyone near Assaulter gets as well. So it's really nice in that it compounds with itself, and then some of the characters that you tend to put next to Assaulter, like Monstrosity for the offense up on Assaulter, Monstrosity tends to be pretty slow. So extra speed, always really good, and then an extra 5% damage on top of that, and Assaulter already has one of the highest base damages in the game. It's very, very good. So yeah, this ends up just making Assaulter really, really awesome if you're going to use Assaulter on any of your primary AIM comps. I absolutely love this ability. It's a lot of extra turns for everyone. So for me, this is a 4-star. All right, now we're going to take a look at AIM Researcher. Just a quick side note, a lot of people seem to think like, you don't need Researcher, there's plenty of healing already. I personally really like Researcher on the team when you can put Researcher on the team, because you can have Scientist Supreme healing, you can have Security healing adjacents, and you can have AIM Researcher spot healing and that heals adjacents. And when you run them all, you get a lot of healing and a lot of sustain. So I really like them as a very sustaining team. So don't discount the Researcher comps. Alright, looking at Researcher's basic, upgrading this with tier 4s adds 30% more damage, and it changes the offense down from 90% chance to apply to always apply. Both those things are very, very standard, very negligible. You're pretty much always going to get that offense down anyway. An extra 30% of Researcher's damage, not a big deal at all. So for me, this is just a 2-star. Alright, now we're going to take a look at Researcher's Special. So Researcher's Special, when you put tier 4s, adds an extra 1,000 health to the flat heal, which is almost nothing when, again, late game average health for a character is between 150 and 200,000 health, so an extra 1,000 is nothing. And it goes from a 75% chance to flip bleed on lowest health ally and adjacent to guaranteed flip bleed. But there's a couple things about this. For one, 75% of the time rather, it's always going to happen already. And more importantly, it's only when you use this ability, and very rarely does someone on the AIM team still have a bleed to even get flipped. So every once in a while, this can help, and when that happens, most of the time it helps anyway. So this upgrade does almost nothing. So for me, this is a 1-star. All right, now we're gonna take a look at Researcher's passive. So I really like Researcher's passive for a couple of reasons. For one, it goes from on turn 75% chance to choose a random ally and apply one of these positive effects to 100%, which is nice, especially because Researcher, as you'll see later in the passive, has ways to gain more speed bar. And this isn't just your usual offense up, defense up, speed up. This can be regeneration, death proof, and deflect as well. And giving someone a death proof or a deflect can make a monumental difference. So I really, really like this passive, and having it guaranteed is nice, especially if Researcher is going to be taking extra turns. And that's the other thing that's changed. When a negative effect is applied to an AIM ally, fill this character's speed bar by 20% instead of 10%. That's a big difference, and you can run AIM characters that give themselves debuffs. You can have Security, who gets slow when they taunt. You can have Infector, who's going to randomly get debuffs whenever they take a turn, which means you can make Researcher take a lot of turns. And if you make Researcher take a lot of turns, not only can you do more healing, you can do more offense downing, and offense downing is really important. If Researcher gets that one extra turn and goes just before an enemy instead of after, and can offense down a big ability, that can save you a ton of damage. And of course, Researcher will go that much sooner to heal up what little damage was done. So it can be a huge game changer. It can be a double play with applying death proof to someone randomly and saving them as well, in addition to the offense down saving someone else. So I love this upgrade. For me, this is a 4-star. All right, now we're going to take a look at AIM Monstrosity. So AIM Monstrosity is basic. It goes from 90% chance to apply a defense down when you add tier 4s to a 100% chance to apply defense down. And that's it. And man, is that pretty useless. Don't get me wrong, it's upsetting when you don't get the defense down, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to get the defense down, and 1 in every 3 turns you're going to use the special anyway, if he doesn't gain any extra ability energy from Scientist Supreme. So it's almost never going to come up, and then even when you don't get the defense down, half the time the target has defense down anyway from something that someone else has done, like Scientist Supreme ult. So yeah, this is virtually worthless. This is a 1-star for me. Now we're going to take a look at Monstrosity's special. So this one's a tricky one that not everyone may have noticed. So this does 2 things. This adds 50% more damage to the primary attack for Monstrosity, but it also switches the order of the operations of the ability. So at the level 6, this Monstrosity will do damage and then give offense up to himself and his adjacent allies. Once you upgrade it, not only does the attack do more damage, but he'll do offense up first and then do the attack. So not only is it doing 50% more damage, but then it's doing 50% of the total damage, which is 300% because of the offense up as extra. So you're actually getting 200% more damage on this attack, which is amazing, especially because Monstrosity has some of the highest base damage in the game. So this hits really, really hard. It's ready on turn 1, and usually Scientist Supreme will ult on turn 1, so you're doing this into a target with defense down already. This extra burst is just a massive amount of damage. I mean, just plus 200% damage on a single target attack. Really, really good. So for me, this is a 4-star. All right, now we're going to take a look at Monstrosity's passive. So adding tier 4s to this ability changes the on-turn heal from 15% of max health to 20% of max health. So that's pretty standard. Healing on turn is nice, but only healing 5% more max health. It can be really good, but it's definitely not necessary, and just because it's 5% max health and it's pretty standard, for me, it's a 2-star. All right, now we're going to take a look at AIM Infector. So starting with AIM Infector's basic, when you add tier 4s to this ability, it does 60% more damage, and it goes from a 70% chance to apply a random negative effect to guaranteed applying a random negative effect. Here's the problem. Firstly, Infector doesn't have particularly high damage, so the 60% damage isn't great. But more importantly, the applying a random negative effect is from that same pool of offense down, defense down, and slow, and these are typically what Infector is going to be transferring anyway. So not only did it already happen 70% of the time, but most of the time it's going to be trying to apply something that Infector was already transferring over anyway. So for this reason, the fact that that is very rarely actually going to apply an extra negative effect, and otherwise it's just 60% more damage on a not particularly strong basic as it is, for me this is just a 2-star. Alright, now we're taking a look at Infector's special. So this changes a lot. Firstly, the instant speed bar change goes from 50% to 75%, which is huge. I mean, it just puts Infector that much closer to another turn, so that's already a big win. It changes the flat heal by 4,000 health, which is moderate, and then more importantly, it changes from giving counter to Infector and the adjacent allies to 2 counter to Infector and adjacent allies. So that's at least 3 more attacks just from using this ability. So you're getting a much bigger heal, well, 4,000 health. Much bigger is a bit of a stretch, but 4,000 more health and a heal. You're getting a free quarter of a speed bar each time you use it from this upgrade, and you're getting 3 more attacks because of the extra counter stack on Infector and the 2 adjacent A.I.M allies. So you get a really good return for investment on this upgrade if you're going to be using Infector. I really like this upgrade. For me, this is a 4-star. Alright, and finally we're going to look at Infector's passive. So it changes a couple things, but the big one is the very first thing is on turn, instead of gaining 1 random negative effect, it's going to be gaining 2 random negative effects. So this is really good for 2 reasons, because 1, it's more negative effects to transfer to the enemy team with a basic attack, so it's increasing the debuffs you apply, and then every time Infector gains one of those debuffs, he gains a corresponding positive buff for 2 turns, so getting 2 negative effects is essentially 2 2-turn positive effects. So more debuffs, more positive effects. Right off the bat, that's a big boost to A.I.M Infector, and then it's also an extra 5% max health, which certainly doesn't hurt. So this is a very strong upgrade. It's certainly not necessary, but it makes Infector a good bit better. So for me, this is a 3-star. Alright, so that is a wrap. I really like that the new and improved A.I.M team does not really require very many tier 4 abilities to function at a very high level. So this was a fun one to do. But on that note, I'm gonna wrap up and start working on the next one. So I know there are a lot of teams you guys want me to do Orange Essentials for, so keep an eye out on YouTube. I'm gonna make a community post with a poll and let you guys vote on which Orange Essentials get done next. So you can let me know in the comments below, and also just keep an eye out for that poll where you guys can vote, and we'll see which ones we do next. But on that note, for those of you that don't know, I stream Marvel Strike Force every single day on Twitch, twitch.tv/Khasino, every day at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Anyone is welcome to join my Discord server, discord.gg/Khasino. We got blitz predictions, infographics, videos, data mines, content creator Q&A, and more. I want to give a shout out to ClanHQ for sponsoring this video. I want to give a big shout out to Vet for editing this video. He's been doing a great job with the editing, and especially this month, I'm going to be keeping him very busy, sending him lots and lots of videos. So make sure you guys show him some love in the comments. Otherwise, that is all for now. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys real soon. Until then. Peace!